The Neversink River is one of the world's last great places. It doesn't have grand vistas or high mountains or giant rapids, but it is this real quiet beauty. It feels like we're a million miles away from civilization. This entire valley is 200 feet of sand and gravel, so it is a French drain. In a big storm event, you would get water spreading out over these large floodplains, which is a mile or 2 mile wide at its widest, and soaking into that sand and gravel base. It provides this natural drainage system to slow down water in a way that is not destructive. Mechanized farming, when it came in, when they started to really level fields, that's when the changes really started. It went from being almost all forested and natural and swampy to being farmland. They pushed and leveled all the dirt, moved trees, and pushed it into these berms by the river. So it acted as almost this flood levee in a lot of places along the valley. We're not allowing the river to kind of spread out and slow down and drop its sediment and nutrient load from upstream. And so you're speeding up the river, creating more damaging impacts downstream.
We modeled using high-tech imagery to really look at how flooding happens here on the Neversink and how with a berm like this, how that alters that flooding. The berm is like a wall next to the river. It's a barrier. It doesn't allow the flooding flows from the river to expand out over that floodplain. We want the water to be able to expand like it naturally should. By getting rid of these berms, we're creating a whole new floodplain habitat ecologically. We also know through modeling that by doing this, it helps to decrease flood risk to our communities that are downstream. And here we are today, reconnecting this river to its floodplain so that it's a much more natural ecosystem that will flood, that will store water, that provide benefits for wildlife and habitat, as well as for people.
Small changes in the headwaters of the Neversink really do have big impacts all the way down through the system. The remarkable thing about rivers is that they show us so clearly how interconnected all of these systems are. And it's really important to think about nature-based solutions as a system-wide response, and that we use them in multiple different places to make the whole system more resilient.
FEMA Region 3 is based out of Philadelphia. We cover 6 states. We go as far north as Pennsylvania, as far south as Virginia. So we are seeing changing conditions in a number of different ways. We're seeing higher rainfalls in shorter periods of time, and that has devastating effects. So FEMA's taken a watershed approach in terms of our mapping. Instead of looking just at an individual community or even a county, we're looking at the entire watershed and how that functions.
We know that rainstorms are going to be stronger, and so we have to build for that future world. Now is an opportunity, through investing in nature, to create the resilient future that we want to see, instead of allowing climate change to happen to us.
It's really trying to figure out how do we take the pieces of what we have and what we know based on our conservation science and look to the future. What can we build here that will be sustainable and capture all of those natural functions and services that you would expect from nature in this part of the world?
With the removal of this berm, from a biodiversity perspective, we create all kinds of backwater habitat for aquatic as well as terrestrial species. From a river function perspective, we also enable that water to move out in the floodplain, to slow down and be stored here. So it recharges aquifers, it decreases velocities, and lowers the height of flow.
There is no one-size-fits-all nature-based solution. So really what we like to talk about is it's about principles. It's about how we think about systems.
The Neversink is one project in one space at one time. What we really want to see is a series of restorations that collectively add up across a larger river in our watersheds and to communities downstream. We want to have an impact at the scale of the Delaware River Basin.
Rural communities, mid-sized cities, New York City, there are solutions in all of these places. In some cases, it's as simple as a wetland restoration project, just a few acres, and it's a place where people can go and sort of see a natural feature. In other cases, it's $1.5 billion investment creating a riverfront park on the other side in Lower Manhattan here. This is an opportunity to invest in nature and create a new world.
Conditions are changing, we know that, and so we have to plan a little bit differently, and that's our goal, is that we get communities and we get people to make different decisions about where they invest, where they live, how they invest, and how they live.
We can take out berms that block the river from flooding. We can restore wetlands and recreate wetlands areas. There are things that we can change, but we are part of the system, and there are people that make their living in this area. So there is this balance of how do we optimize in a way for people and nature.
I think from the Nature Conservancy's perspective, our natural ecosystems are part of that solution and part of that toolbox. And this project provides us a place to start to have that conversation.